Sahana vavatu, sahanau bhunaktu, saha viryankaravavahai, tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram. Namah Shri Shankarananda Guru Padambu Janmane Savilasa Mahamoha Graha Grasaika Karmani. Okay, let's read the verses that we covered last time. We'll read from verse 37 to 39. Okay. Satyam jnanamanantam yat brahma tadvastu tasya tat Īśvaratvam ca jīvātmā upadhidvaya kalpetam shaktirastyaishvari kāchit sarvavastu niyamika ānandamayamārabhya gūಢā sarveshu vastushu vastu dharmāniyam yeran shaktya naiva yada tada Anyonya dharma sankaryat viplaveta jagat khalu. So what have we seen so far now in this chapter? We're at the end here, and the topic is Brahman, the limitations of Brahman. So it was said that Brahman cannot be limited in space because it is all-pervading. Brahman cannot be limited in time because it is eternal. And Brahman cannot be limited in object because it is in every object. So therefore, Brahman is ananta, it is infinite. We saw that Brahman is jnanam, is pure consciousness because it's of the nature of experience itself. We saw that Brahman is sat, satya, means it is pure existence because it cannot be negated. So it's pure consciousness, it's pure existence. And now we're seeing the ananta aspect of Brahman, the fact that it is infinite. And so Swami Vidyāraṇya ji begins by saying it's infinite in space, time, and object. Then he says, no, that's not true, because space, time, and object are all projections of māyā. So they can never limit Brahman, like the wave can never limit water. So you cannot say that Brahman is all-pervading in space because actually space is in Brahman. So you can't say it's all-pervading because space is a superimposition on Brahman. You cannot say Brahman is eternal because time is a superimposition on Brahman. And we cannot say that Brahman is in every object because every object is superimposed in Brahman. It is like we say gold is in the bracelet, in the bangle, in the ring. Actually, a bracelet, bangle, and ring are in gold. Actually, they are in gold. The substratum is gold. So it's not that Brahman is in all beings like that. No, it's that all beings are superimposed on Brahman. That's how it is. It is not that we have a body and there's some Brahman inside. No, this body and mind is superimposed in Brahman. So we have to get rid of this mentality because many times we think there's this little consciousness inside, but that's not the case. This body, mind, individuality are superimposed on consciousness. So how is this happening? How is it that Brahman, which is unlimited, appears limited? How is this happening? And is there a limitation caused by Īśvara and Jiva? Is there a limitation caused by God and the individual on Brahman? And so the answer is no, there's no limitation. There's no limitation. And this notion of difference of Īśvara and Jiva, Īśvara, God, Jiva, the individual, this notion of difference of the two is happening because of this power called māyā. And what is this power called māyā? So māyā is a shakti. So it is a shakti, it is a power, and what it does is sarva vastu niyamika. Sarva vastu niyamika means it establishes control and order in the whole of the universe. So when we look at the universe, Anandamaya Arabhya, starting from Anandamaya Kosha all the way in all beings, it establishes control. So everything stays in its dharma. Every single thing stays in its dharma. So like a seed, an orange seed will definitely yield an orange tree. An apple seed will yield an apple tree, right? The sun is in the center of the universe and the planets will revolve in the sun. So from the smallest thing to the biggest thing, there's an order. If we think about any element, an element has a certain number of electrons in it. If you change the number of electrons, it's going to be a different element. The same way, if you think about our system, our eyes can see, but you will never find that our eyes are able to hear. So from the littlest things to the grandest things, from the simplest things, that like salt, nature is to be salty, it's not going to be sweet, to the law of gravity, that when we take something and put it and we drop it, it will fall. It's not going to go upwards, it's going to fall unless we're in space. So everything has some kind of order. So that goes to show that, listen, what's beneath the earth, what's making everything move is not an inert thing. It has to be a sentient thing. So beneath all of this order, this control, this law of the universe is a sentient thing. And if we didn't have control, order in the universe, then it would be impossible to make any kind of calculation. There would be no science existing because science is based on calculations. There would be no mathematics existing because mathematics is based on calculation. So all of these fields, physics, chemistry, astronomy, astrology, they would not exist if there was not some control or system in the universe. So this sarva vastu niyamika, this is called māyā. And it's gudha, it's hidden. Means we cannot see it. We see its expression, but we cannot see it because it is beyond the mind and senses. And as said in verse 39, if this wasn't there, the world would be a chaos and not a cosmos. But we know that it's a cosmos. So now, what is giving this māyā power? So, because we see that there's control in the world, there's order, means there has to be power. This we've come to, right? And this is very logical. Now, because there's power, there has to be sentiency. Because without sentiency, without a sentient substance, there's no power that can be executed. For example, if we were all sitting in the room and all of the chairs were, in a certain place, and then we all go out of the room and we come back and the chairs moved, we don't say that the chairs moved themselves. That would be like a scary movie. We know that somebody was there who moved the chairs. So when there's control, there's power. And when there's power, there's a sentiency behind it. So what is empowering Maya? So that is our question, and that's where we will start from today, verse number 40. Chittaya veshata shaktihi, chittaya veshata shaktihi, chetaneva vibhati sa, chetaneva vibhati sa, tatshaktyupadhi samyogat, tatshaktyupadhi samyogat, brahmaiveshwaratam vrajet, brahmaiveshwaratam vrajet, chittaya veshata shaktihi, chetaneva vibhati sa, tatshaktyupadhi samyogat, brahmaiveshwaratam vrajet. So what is this sa feminine, this shakti, okay, this shakti, this maya, which is a power, it's a shakti, chittaya veshataha, it is veshataha, it is endowed, it has the entry of chittaya, the reflection of consciousness. So this maya is endowed with the reflection of consciousness of Brahman. And that's why chetana iva vibhati. Chetana iva vibhati. It appears conscious. So actually maya is inert, but chetana iva vibhati. It appears conscious. Why? Chittaya veshataha. Because it is endowed with the reflection of consciousness. Tat shaktyupadhi samyogat. Tat, when that Brahman, shakti upadhi samyogat, due to the union of Brahman with the upadhi of Maya, then what happens? Brahma eva, that Brahma becomes Īśvara. Īśvaratam vrajet. That Brahman appears as Īśvara. Means it's Brahman alone, but it appears as Īśvara. So I'll read this explanation and then we go through it. This power appears as conscious because it is associated with the reflection of Brahman. And because of its association with this power, Brahman gets its omniscience. So remember, pure Brahman, nothing happens. Pure Brahman is very cool and calm, doesn't do anything, doesn't act. It's just pure awareness, right? It's just pure awareness. So what is happening? How is Maya acting? How is Maya acting if pure Brahman has no association whatsoever? How is Maya able to activate itself? So this example is given. You just think about space. Space is all-pervading. All-pervading. I'm doing this. Space is all-pervading. And even if it's all-pervading, it can be reflected in water, right? So space is everywhere. It's everywhere. It's even in water. But because water is sort of, it's clear, space can be reflected in water. And when you look at water, you could see that you can see space. You could actually get a glimpse of space. You can see space between trees and space between leaves and things like that. So in the same way, Brahman, who's all-pervading, means, again, we have to use this language because of limitations. So Brahman, who is all-pervading, the reflection of Brahman appears in Maya. The reflection of Brahman appears in Maya, just like space is all-pervading, and the reflection of space appears in a body of water. And that's how Maya gets its sentiency. That's how Maya is able to activate itself. Brahman is not doing anything. In Brahman's presence, Maya gets activated. Maya gets activated. And this pure consciousness with Maya, that is known as Īśvara. So when pure consciousness is associated with Maya, then that entity is called Īśvara. That's what we call Īśvara, the ruler of the universe, the controller of the universe. So Īśvara is the actual ruler, and Maya is the power of Īśvara. Īśvara is the one who's all-knowing, and Maya is the power of Īśvara. Īśvara is the one that's all-capable, and Maya is the power of Īśvara. So that Brahman plus Maya gives us this being called Īśvara, or God. And that's how Īśvara happens. That's how Īśvaratva happens. Lordliness happens. So now the question is, okay, I understand this. So we have Brahman, right? Brahman's power is Maya, and Brahman associated with the power of Maya now becomes Īśvara. Now, what about Jiva? How is this appearance of Jiva happening? So now let's see verse number 41. Koshopadivivakshayam yati brahmaiva jīvātmā pitamahashchaikah putra-pautro yatha prati koshopadivivakshayam yati brahmaiva jīvātmā pitamahashchaikah putra-pautro yatha prati. Now, koshopadi vivakshayam. Okay, so when we're speaking vivakshayam, when we're speaking in the context of kosha upadi, the conditioning of the 5 sheaths. So with respect to the 5 sheaths, Brahma eva, that Brahman itself, yati jīvātmā, is called Jiva. So with respect to the conditioning of the 5 sheaths, it is called Jiva. So you see in the verse 40, it says, Shakti upadi samyogat Brahma eva Īśvaratam vrajet. So with that Shakti upadi, Brahman appears as Īśvara. Then here it says koshopadi vivakshayam. With the kosha upadi, then yati brahmaiva jīvātmā. Brahman appears as Jiva. So with the Shakti conditioning, Brahman appears as Īśvara. With the kosha conditioning, Brahman appears as Jiva. Pitamahashchaikah. Just like ekaha, one person, pitamaha is called a father and a grandfather. Putra-pautro yatha prati, towards, with respect to a son and a grandson. So first let's look at this Jiva. Now, how is this Jiva coming about? So that same consciousness, when it gets associated with now not a Maya power, But when this pure consciousness gets associated with the 5 sheaths, the food sheath, the vital air sheath, the mental sheath, intellectual sheath, bliss sheath, when pure consciousness gets associated with that, that's called jiva. The one who associates is called jiva. That's how individuality happens. Jiva means individual being. Sometimes we call it ego, or sometimes we can say our name, Shubhani. That's called jiva. So, see, in reality is, we see this also in Bhagavad Gita, everything is running the way it's running. We don't need to unnecessarily own it up. Eyes are seeing, ears are hearing, lips are speaking, a body is moving, mind is thinking. Everything is doing the things that it's supposed to do. Everything is just flowing. Everything is happening. But when I say, I am doing this, I am seeing, I am hearing, I am this person, that is called that ego. In actuality, we are creating that identity. It is not, it's not actually there. And it doesn't need to be there because, as I said, everything is functioning the way it functions. And this is how an enlightened being is. They're just present. Everything just moves the way it moves. They're not owning anything up. They're not identifying with anything. They're not making a whole drama out of anything. They're just letting things be. So jiva, this notion of individuality, happens when we associate with this individual conditioning or the 5 sheaths. And the minute we do that, we are bound. The minute we take ourselves to be the body, good luck to us. What we get? Samsara. We get this samsara, and it says in Viveka-Chudamani, I don't know if you remember, but Viveka-Chudamani was ages ago. The example of the silkworm was given, koshakrit. And the silkworm, what it does is with its saliva, creates a whole cocoon. Like it creates a whole cocoon. And then it gets bound in that. It gets bound in that own cocoon. So kosha, silkworm is called koshakrit. So we are also that kind of thing wherein we create so many identities, and we ourselves get bound by it. We ourselves get bound by it. This is the jiva. And I told you before, that this very short anecdote of a man who was hugging the tree. And he said, I want to be free of this tree. Help me be free of this tree. But he's the one hugging it. And then he's asking to be free. So when we are asking for our freedom, we are asking for freedom, but we are hugging these koshas. I want to be free. I want to be enlightened. I want to be liberated. But we are hugging these 5 sheaths. So that enlightenment is not going to happen. Not going to happen. So when that consciousness is associated with this individuality, this notion of I, that appears as jiva. And what is the example? He says, just like one person is called father with respect to his son. So with respect to his son, he's called father. But with respect to his grandson, he's called grandfather. It's just one person. So like that one consciousness, with respect to māyā, it's called Īśvara. With respect to the 5 sheaths, is called jiva. Just like one person is called father with respect to the son, and grandfather with respect to the grandson. It's just one person. But the important thing here to note is, if you look at the person in his or her essence, right? Any person, they are free from all of these identities. And this is what he's going to say now in verse number 42. Putra dera vivakshayam, na pita mahaha, tadvannesho napi jivaha, shakti-kosha vivakshane, putra dera vivakshayam, na pita mahaha, tadvannesho napi jivaha, shakti-kosha vivakshane. So, putra dehe avivakshayam. So, in not considering putra, the son, or pautra, the grandson, in not considering that, napita mahaha, then that man is neither a father nor a grandfather. Tatvat, in the same way, that reality is not Īśvara, na Īśaha, napi jiva, is not Īśvara, is not jiva. Shakti-kosha avivakshane. When we do not take it from the standpoint of Shakti and Kosha, then it's not Īśvara nor is it jiva. So as a man is neither a father nor a grandfather when considered apart from his son and his grandson, so Brahman is neither Īśvara nor jiva when considered apart from māyā, or the 5 sheaths. So this is something important we have to note, is that the man is just considered grandfather or father with respect to the grandson or son respectively. But remember, referential identity is never a real identity, because the son will not always be there. So he will not always be a father. The grandson will not always be there and was not always there. So he will not always be a grandfather. So these referential identities are never reality. They're never reality. They are just coming and going. And whenever we call ourselves with reference to something, that appellation, that name we get, it's going to be temporary, because that thing at some point of time was not there, and at some point of time it will not be there. Like if somebody says, "Where is your house?" My house is the one with the green and red garbage can outside. Well, that garbage can might not always be there. So then to find your house will not always be easy. But when you take away all the referential identities and just take the essence of that man as he is, then that's his real identity. So our real identity is always that which is without any reference. Any referential identity will not be real. And so Brahman, with these references of Shakti and the Koshas, has referential identity as Īśvara and Jiva. But if you take away all of that, Shakti and Kosha, then there's no Īśvara and there's no Jiva. Now you can liken this to a dream. So in the dream, you have a dream with somebody who's ruling something. Let's say somebody who's ruling the world, and somebody who is a citizen of the world. You have a dream. Somebody who's ruling the world, someone who's a citizen of the world. And so the ruler of the world in the dream is Īśvara, and the citizen is Jiva. But when you wake up from the dream, what do you know? It's just a dream. It's just a dream, right? It's all a dream. In the same way, for an enlightened being, everything is actually Brahman. Everything is actually Brahman. But when I take myself to be this individual, then there has to be Īśvara. When I take myself to be an individual, then there has to be totality. Individuality is there, so totality has to be there. So then there is a relative reality of Jiva and Īśvara. But when I take myself to be Brahman, then everything is just one. So it's either, I have to either take myself as relative reality, as a Jiva, and as a Jiva, then worship Īśvara. And if I take myself to as Brahman, then it's Brahman worshipping Brahman. Brahman worshipping Brahman, because Brahman alone is. Now, what some people tend to do, which is very much incorrect, is they take themselves to be Jiva, the individuality, and they disregard Īśvara. They disregard God. So I am the individual and there's no God and there's nothing like God. Then that is incorrect thinking, because how will the individual exist without the total? That if there is individual law, rule, individuality, there has to be totality. So when I take myself to be Jiva, then there has to be an Īśvara. And some people, what they do is, they negate themselves as Jiva. I am not a Jiva, but I still believe in Īśvara. So they negate their individuality, but they keep the totality. Then how can that Īśvara be Īśvara? Who will he rule over? There's no individuality. So that is also incorrect thinking. So either I keep myself at a relative standpoint as Jiva and worship Īśvara, or I come to the absolute standpoint and know that Brahman alone is, and Brahman worships Brahman. But even if I come to the absolute standpoint, I still practice whatever I practice. I will still, if the Guru is there, we would still bow down to the Guru. If we go to a temple, we will still bow down to Īśvara, but with the notion that it's Brahman bowing down to Brahman. So this is the beauty of Vedanta, that it sees absolute oneness in everything. But still, remember, the root of the life of an enlightened being will always be dharmic. It will not sway from dharma. And there's even more love for Īśvara, more love for Guru, and more love for everybody. So from the absolute standpoint, there is no Īśvara or Jiva, because their essence is Brahman. There's a beautiful oneness attained by all. Now, what happens to the one that realizes this or recognizes this? We'll see now the last verse, 43. Ya evam brahma vedaisha, ya evam brahma vedaisha, brahmaiva bhavati svayam, brahmaiva bhavati svayam, brahmano nasti janmataha, brahmano nasti janmataha, punaresha na jayate, punaresha na jayate. Ya evam brahma vedaisha, brahmaiva bhavati svayam, brahmano nasti janmataha, punaresha na jayate. So, ya evam brahma veda, the one who knows Brahman in this way. Yam yaha, the one who, brahma veda, the one who knows Brahman, Evam, in this way, Brahma eva bhavati, becomes Brahman, means realizes himself to be Brahman. Swayam, he himself becomes Brahman, she herself becomes Brahman. They realize that they are Brahman. Brahmanaha na asti janma, and of Brahman there is no birth. Ataha, therefore, punaha esha na jayate, therefore that being is not born again. Punaha esha na jayate. He who knows Brahman thus becomes himself Brahman. Brahman has no birth, so he is not born again. So what does this mean? Yaha here means whoever it be, from any culture, any background, any being, any gender, whoever it is, whoever knows Brahman. Whoever knows Brahman how? Whoever knows Brahman to be the reality of Jiva and the reality of Īśvara. Who knows Brahman in essence. Like you know the man to be the man, not the grandfather or not the father. You know the man to be the man. You know the woman to be the woman, not the mother or grandmother. You know Brahman to be Brahman, who's the reality of Īśvara and Jiva. You know Brahman in essence. In essence, as what's given in this chapter, Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, existence, consciousness, bliss. The one who knows Brahman in this way, Brahmaiva Bhavati, realizes that they themselves are Brahman. Because Brahman is non-dual and Brahman is infinite. So I have to be that. And I exist, I am aware, and I am also infinite. Brahmanaha na asti janma. And of course, of Brahman, there is no such thing as birth or death. Brahman ever is. Brahman is isness, its existence. So there's no birth, there's no death, there's nothing like that of Brahman. And therefore, for this being, there's no more rebirth. What do you mean there's no more rebirth? See, from one point of understanding, in the beginning of Vedanta, we feel like we are this jiva which has to break free from samsara and recognize that Brahman and get realized so that we will never be born again in this world, right? But as one goes deeper in Vedanta, we realize that we are Brahman itself here and now. You don't need to go anywhere. You don't need to do anything. You yourself are that reality here and now. And your nature is freedom. You are ever free. So whether you're in this world or out of this world, it doesn't matter. Whatever has to happen to the body, where it will drop, if you remember in Viveka Chudamani, where the body dies, where it goes, it doesn't matter, because here and now, you are free in essence. So therefore, that's it. There's no birth. There's no birth now. So what to talk about rebirth? Here itself, there is no birth. Here itself, there is no death. So from one standpoint, I already am free from birth and death as pure consciousness. From another standpoint, that individuality which would otherwise take up another body. See, in our scriptures, it says that when a person or an individual has so many desires, and they are not able to accomplish all of those desires in this very birth itself, after this body sheds, that individuality or jiva takes up another body. Why? Because that jiva is propelled by their desires. So they'll take up another birth. But for the one who has realized that they are Brahman, they cannot have any desire. Because there is no desirer and there's no world to be desired. Everything is new. There's no ego, and there's also no world to be desired. Everything is you. So what desire will there be? That whole desire will melt. It will break down. So there's nothing that can propel the birth of any body anymore. So the one who knows Brahman, realizes Brahman, is Brahman itself, free from birth and from death. So this is the teaching of being able to discern ourselves from the 5 sheaths. Right? So I'll just summarize what we've done today carefully. We have seen that Brahman is existence, consciousness, and infinitude. And Brahman is not limited by space, time, object. They are superimpositions in Brahman. The question comes, what about Jiva and Īśvara? Do they limit Brahman? No, they don't, because they are also limitations. They are also superimpositions, rather, not limitations, superimpositions on Brahman. They are superimpositions. How? Through the power of māyā, which we call shakti, which is the power that governs the world. Through that conditioning, Brahman appears as Īśvara. And through the conditioning of the 5 sheaths, Brahman appears as Jiva, or the individual. But Brahman in itself is free from them. You only say Jiva and Īśvara from the standpoints of the conditionings. You remove those conditionings and all you have is Brahman. But why? Why are those conditionings removable? Why can I or should I remove these conditionings of māyā and the 5 sheaths? Because they're not absolute reality. Māyā in itself cannot exist without Brahman. The 5 sheaths cannot exist without Brahman. So therefore, they're not absolute reality. The only reality is Brahman. It is like saying, can the waves and the ocean limit the water? No, they cannot limit the water. And in fact, the waves and the ocean are nothing but water. They're nothing but water. There's no such thing actually called ocean without water. There's no such thing wave that you can call a wave without water. There's no such thing as Īśvara without that essential Brahman consciousness. There's no such thing as Jiva, the wave, without essential consciousness, Brahman. So they cannot limit Brahman in any way. And therefore, the example given was just like a man is called father or grandfather. Father with reference to a son, grandfather with reference to a grandson. But in his own essence, he is just a man. Like that, Brahman is just Brahman. And the one who knows Brahman as Brahman, is Brahman themselves, is ever free here and now. So with this, we conclude chapter 3, pañca-kośas vivekaha. Next week, we will do the summary of the entire chapter so that we can see the whole thought flow. And then after that, we are going to go to Taittiriya Upanishad. Taittiriya Upanishad, specifically Brahmananda Vali, where this section is commented upon, meaning where the initial mantra of Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, where that is located, that particular section of the Upanishad is what we will study so that we can see exactly the deeper meaning of the Upanishad. Okay? Say a closing prayer. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurabhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.